I'm Brent Leary.
Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and you are looking live. Wait a minute, I just went into Brent Musburger. Remember when he used to?
You keep doing that. You keep mixing up Brents.
It's hard being a Brent out there, man. I tell you, especially a Brent that's a Los Angeles Rams fan. I tell you right now.
Well, apparently the Rams don't care.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, hey, you really don't. Anyway, it is Blur's Day. I was going to say Thursday, but it's another Blur's Day, another CRM Playaz Weekly for the 1 millionth consecutive week. We're here. We're here for you.
And you nailed the number this time too. 1,000,002.
We're here for you mainly because we're afraid to go out anywhere. Hey, Sven.
How you doing, buddy?
But hey, it is another great Thursday, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a guest coming up a little like halfway through the show. Gives us a chance to talk. This is like one of the first times it's just been you and me for at least the first half of the show for a while.
Well, we got actually a bunch of stuff to actually go over. I think at least modestly interesting.
Well, at least for us. Anybody else out there?
Good luck to you.
Yeah, but we got some news. You're going to give us an update on BYO. I was going to say BYOB. It is BYOB.
BYOB.
Right.
Band.
Get an update on that.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about what happened yesterday. A first for us that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
We did a special CRM Players segment with one of our buddies, John Hernandez. We've known John for years. Now he's recently rejoined Genesis, and we'll play a couple of clips from that. They're doing some interesting things, but we also point you to where you can hear the whole segment because I thought it was pretty good. I was a little nervous there for a second because I thought for a second there, I remember John being a fan of a football team that I didn't necessarily like, and I was really hoping it wasn't the Pats, and thank God it wasn't. It was the Raiders, so we were able to move forward and press forward.
Yeah, you can live with. I mean, you can live with anybody but the Pats, right? Basically.
For the most, even the Niners, I don't care about them anymore.
Ooh,
Sven, wait a minute. What? All right, Sven. You just throw a bomb out there like that, and once again, make sure we get her name right. It's L. Nicole
France. So it's not Nicole, Germany or Paris, France, and L. Nicole.
That's right. So he throws that little teaser out there. Now it's like, what happened?
Maybe we'll have some breaking news from Sven. We'll see.
our foreign correspondent, Sven.
Sven, yes, sir.
All right, so before let's go into the update of what took place yesterday because it was a happy hour, and it was a different kind of happy hour for us. This was the first time that we opened up the the happy hour to folks who were not on the call, but just wanted to see what people were talking about on the happy hour call. And from all that I heard from the folks, everybody seemed to like it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it was interesting because we were live. I mean, usually, of course, like anything else, we're all sitting there and yakking and drinking behind the scenes. Although it sounded much, when I say drinking, it sounds way, let's say, more debauched than what it really is. It's mostly drinking water and tea, right? And Diet Coke, right? So no Pepsi. That's like the Patriots in those happy hours. So
there it is.
This one was live. We actually deliberately took in all the people who were on the waiting list. So we had more than the usual 15. And thanks to Eric Pozel from CRM Northwest, just led into this spirited discussion that that was it went the whole time, right? And why don't you give some people a kind of view on that one?
Yeah, so typically, at least the last couple of happy hours, either you or I would, after we get through the introductions, and quite honestly, those introductions, I think the record was just going for people introducing themselves. The record was like an hour.
Yeah.
So the happy hour is actually taken up by just doing the introduction.
It's kind of fun. They go an hour and a half. So,
but right. One of the big things that I think we might have learned yesterday is that people on the call itself were like, hey, you know what? This was great, mainly because we didn't spend an hour introducing each other, especially because most of the people already know each other. So we were able to kind of get right into it, right into the discussion really early. And traditionally, it's you or I that will throw out a question out, and then people will run with it. We didn't even get a chance to do that because our buddy Easy Ed Schlesinger, I like calling him Easy Ed, could be either Easy Ed or Special Ed, but I like Easy Ed a little better. Ed, I think, jumped the gun on us. First of all, Ed was doing it from like on location, on a special assignment to help the family out. But even while doing that, he's joining the happy hour crew and throwing out a question. I think it was Ed that started.
No, it was Eric who threw out the question, but it was Ed who answered it.
Okay, so Ed jumped right in.
Immediately in.
What was that question? What kicked out? Because it was an hour-long discussion.
You know what? I don't remember the exact way he phrased the question, but the ultimate discussion was basically, it was kind of a traditional question, really, and it was CRM based, which was even more interesting, which was, look, there's a lot of companies out there. They all want to, there's a lot of companies who are looking to implement CRM. A lot of them don't do it very well. A lot of them do it poorly. There's a lot of factors that go into this. Kind of, how do you deal with all these factors, right? And I'll tell you what, it was amazing, because what we found from the discussion was, if you took let's say the group think, so to speak, the enormity of the number of factors that went into it, and there were discussions going on from the core kind of implementation thinking to behavioral economics, really saw the level of impact and the nuance of the actual implementation and its potential success or failure. And it really ended up going well beyond that as a theme, but it always stayed within the theme of sort of the practical side of taking care of business, a very tactical kind of discussion, or a strategic discussion on tactical issues around how do you actually execute successfully when it comes to anything customer facing, is kind of what went on.
Yes. It was, I mean, I was, since we were doing this live stream thing, I was kind of preoccupied, like trying to make sure everything was working. I don't think I was missed at all, because the conversation just flowed. Everybody was getting in there and sharing and going back and forth. And I thought it was just really cool that we actually, all we did really was hit the start button.
Yeah. Sat back. I remember I sent you a private chat note saying, "This is great. I don't think I have to say anything."
Yeah, it's like autonomous happy hour all of a sudden. It's like we didn't have to do a thing, just like hit a button and then it was off to the races. And right. Yeah.
You're minding production and direction, and I'm drinking BAI Zambia Cherry.
I don't know what Alan was talking about. What did I do?
When you
yeah,
you went to, which went into the infinity loop,
that's
screens.
That's a StreamYard feature, I guess. I was gonna say function.
Right, it's a banner.
I'm not sorry, Alan. You're not going to see that again.
Ever again.
All right, I guess we just have to circle back around to Sven, because he filled in the secret. Well, we knew she was a pilot. We already knew.
This was literally no secret, Sven. I'm so sorry. We were waiting for this breaking news, man.
We know she has an analytical mind, and we knew that she was a pilot.
Although I like your way of putting it, though, Sven. Review.
That was kind of interesting. All right, there it is. All right, well, thanks, Sven, for really the non-breaking news, but we appreciate
it nonetheless.
We appreciate it nonetheless.
Your phrasing is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. His penmanship. Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's right. Your mental penmanship. Your verbal penmanship is fantastic.
It is great.
All right.
So let's do this. It's time for the BYOB update.
All right. So, as you all know, we are producing. Well, not producing it. I guess what are we doing? We're sponsoring it. We're
maybe it's going to be an autonomous contest as well. Maybe we just say stuff and then people do all the work.
The idea is CRM Playaz present. We are presenting. There it is. CRM Playaz presents.
There it is.
Playaz Productions presents the BYOB 2020, Bring Your Own Band 2020. I'm not going to go through the history. Just watch past ones. You'll see the history on those. But right now, as of yesterday, we have, I'll say, 12 corporate bands who are verbally committed. And there's only really one who we're still waiting on a second verbal commitment. But we're going to include them as a committed band. So here's who we have. Right now, committed to BYOB 2020, Pegasystems, Zoho, Salesforce, Oracle, Episerver, Freshworks, Exactly, Pros, ServiceNow, NextJ, Elements.cloud, and SAP are all in.
Well, there's a stipulation for Freshworks. They know what the stipulation is. Alan knows what the stipulation is. Okay.
Okay. They're the only ones with a stipulation, though. Already operating in trouble. They're in trouble from day one. Now, the fascinating thing about this is that, first of all, I was on a call today with one of the companies who are involved for something else. And they told me that there are about 10 messages passing back and forth a day on the band every day. Right, there's an actual thread that they've set up for the band members to start working on what they're doing. That's how important it is. Another one of the players in this competition has told me that they are committed to winning whatever it takes. I'm not sure what that means. And here's the thing: if you look at the 12 companies committed, there's a number of professional singers, vocalists, and instrumentalists who are in there. For example, I found out today from the same company, one of the instrumentalists in their band used to be on one of the band members of Saturday Night Live, right? So yeah, so we're doing some serious pros here. So we also know of at least 2 professional opera singers. I don't know how they're going to play in this thing. One of them was a C-level executive who's going to be involved. We also know that there's at least 2 professional music and video producers who, meaning they did it outside the companies that they're in now, who are going to be involved in producing the videos. I mean, they're going all in. This has become serious matter. One company was a little unsure of their participation, so they put the word out. Because the original band that they thought was still together was no longer together. They put the word out, and they told me in a note today that that we have to literally choose who's going to be in it because so many people want to be part of this. So
yeah, and I actually heard some stuff too. I mean, there's some talk about so the creativity is totally up to the groups here, and it's not just the creativity of the music itself, it's how it's presented and the accoutrements that go with it. There's some thought about I heard the word puppets come up.
Yeah, puppets. We've heard dancers,
maybe even some jugglers. I don't know. It's going to be
maybe
I think maybe a mime or two might be a part of this too.
Tournament. I mean, who knows? But so 2 hints. Maybe what we'll do is every week we'll give 2 hints on what makes this work. What will
Mike Poison? Look at that. I haven't heard from Mike in a while. Good to hear.
No too old on American Idol, my friend, or on American. You know what? Go on America's Got Talent then. So 2 hints. 2 hints. Hint 1. You have the option of doing original songs, covers, whatever you want. However, if you're smart, you'll be thinking more toward covers than originals. Take the shot with originals because that's high risk, high reward. But here's the problem you're going to have. 1, if you do an original, not as the music got to be good, but the song has to be good. The covers, if you're doing a cover, the song's already good, at least by most people's standards. The song's already good. But so there, you just got to make sure the music's good. So hint 1 is recognize that if you pull off an original, that's going to count. But you really got a lot to do to pull one off. And hint 2, to Brent's point, video production is going to matter here since this is all videos, right? So don't just feel that you can find some old band video that your company did and throw it in. It ain't working. If we see a video of a live performance, I guess we should make this clear. If we see a video of a live performance that was done prior, it's going to be disqualified.
Yeah. And let me give you the last hint for all the folks who are entered here. Paul's hint 1 is correct. I mean, you can do original music, or you can, do a hit. But I'll tell you, I would strongly encourage you. I would strenuously encourage you not, I repeat, not to do a Prince song. I'm just saying, if you really want to win, stay away from Prince. Other than that, I'm good.
With one exception. Prince is still alive and he's in your band.
If there's like a dude that works at your company and his first name just so happens to be Prince, okay. But just don't let the Prince guy at your company do a Prince song. That's all I have to say on that. Yes.
That's exactly where I got the idea, Alan, from all of those shows. Simon Cowell and I are like this.
Yeah. Well, I hope not, because he just broke his back.
I know. Well, listen, I got a pinched nerve in my lower back, so clearly we're pretty close.
Okay, so how many folks are confirmed have actually submitted?
No, as far as I'm not taking some of the registrations that have come are coming because it's a deadline that's coming up, but I'm not going to hold people to that. Right. So really, there's only one company that's actually submitted a absolutely complete registration. The others, a lot of the other ones submitted partial. So the reality is this: as long as you're verbally committed, we'll trust you for it, and you go to work and do your thing. But what we're going to need by the time that we really start getting to the acceptance of the videos is a registration form, and we'll send a note to everybody. A registration form with everything necessary, including the songs you're going to sing. There's no last minute ad hoc song, right? We have to know what you're going to sing, and if there's a change, we have to be informed of the change. Okay, so because there is some company that's sort of saying they might do something at the last minute, and that's not actually fine without our knowledge. So, and then finally, just so you know, there are 3 other companies considering it right now that we have no confirmations from yet. And that would give us, if they all say yes, and I don't think they all will, but if they all say yes, that would give us 15, which is where we had at least our original limit, and we'll probably stop there.
Yes, and so let's stop there on the BYOB. Real quick, I wanted to dispel a rumor that came up about us. I think I'm responsible for the rumor. So everybody's talking about TikTok, right? I mean, everybody is trying to speculate on who's buying them. Is Microsoft going to buy them? Was Apple in the race? What about Twitter? So I just want to let folks know that we had held some talks, meaning CRM Playaz had held some talks about whether we should buy TikTok.
And they were serious talks until I realized that, oh, wait, you didn't mean Tic Tacs.
Right. But, out of our talks, one of our players in residence made a really good point. I don't know if he could see this or not, but Ginger Conlon is like, might want to wait till this whole TikTok Google data issue, which brought up the Google data issue. I mean, why in the world would anybody buy this right now with some of the stuff that was going on? Do you think now that this kind of stuff is starting to come out, do you think Microsoft is still as interested in buying TikTok?
I'd say this. I don't. So the answer is no. Well, let's say this. I think they're more cautious. I don't think they're dropping the idea because ultimately there has to be some resolution of that, whatever. I don't know what the tactic was that they used. I didn't read the article, but look, ultimately, anytime there's potential legal issue of substance involved which would potentially impact the operations of the potential acquisition. If I'm the company, I go on hold until that's solved, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm Microsoft, whether they're holding back or not at the moment, I would. And wait till, again, I don't know what the issue is. I don't know how easy it is to resolve. Haven't a clue. But when you get that kind of public then you say yourself and step back.
It said that they were the tactic which experts in mobile phone security said was concealed through an unusual added layer of encryption appears to have violated Google policies. Somehow around they were trying to skirt. I think it had something to do with like Android and the actual OS for Android. Trying to here it is. The identifiers collected by TikTok called MAC addresses are most commonly used for advertising purposes. The White House has said it was worried that user data could be obtained by the Chinese government and used to build detailed dossiers on individuals for blackmail or espionage. Well, that doesn't sound good.
No, it sure doesn't. Sounds pretty seriously bad.
So jeez, I don't think I want to touch that at this point.
No.
Does Microsoft need to touch? I mean, why would they? I wouldn't touch that.
I've never seen this as like TikTok to me is still just a phenomenon. There's so many of those. Let's say this. It either ends up, in the long term, if it ends up like Instagram, then there may be a good reason to buy it, even though maybe out of their price range by that time. At this point, to me, it's a phenomenon that's been really, really pushed forward by the pandemic, right? And but it's like the QBs and these short, short. What was that one that would disappear after our Snapchat, right?
Oh, right, after 12 seconds.
Right. Snapchat's around, but it's no longer the phenomenon it was because people are moving off to other things. And TikTok, at least for me at this moment in its history, is kind of like Snapchat early on. Phenomenon that could go absolutely nowhere potentially, or settle into something less, or end up in Instagram, right? There's no telling where the thing is going, and there's no indicators, and nobody could convince me otherwise that there's some way of deciding its fate now. So given that Microsoft would be pretty much required because of everything else, well, on the one hand, they may be required to pay an inflated price. On the other hand, they may be able to get it for almost nothing if it's going to actually be banned by the government otherwise, right? So the TikTok ownership might want to sell, not fire sale, but cheaper than they ordinarily would have. So but does Microsoft need it? God, no.
Yeah, it's really, I highlighted the piece here. Skirted a privacy safeguard in Android's operating system to collect unique identifiers from millions of mobile devices, data that allows the app to track users online without allowing them to opt out.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, Microsoft, just forget it for now.
I mean, you got to think about this, and this is probably a conversation for another day. To me, if you going into knowing all of this and then still buying this, what does that say about your commitment to, customers' experience, not just data privacy, the customer experience? Because this is for a longer discussion at some other point. Customer experience and data privacy is becoming a much more important part of the customer experience. And when you buy something that is from a company that is doing stuff like this, what does that say to your commitment to customer experience by way of data privacy?
Well, ultimately, you're dealing with issues of trust always, and how can you trust the company that's willing to acquire somebody that's violating your actual privacy and ignoring your wishes too? I mean,
yeah.
You're probably not going to do well with something like that. And when it boils down to what TikTok does isn't all that amazing either.
No, but the fact that, this is not just, we made a mistake. This is, we got caught being devious about what we're wanting to do with that data. That's a whole other ball game for me.
Yeah. I don't know. Microsoft, forget it. Okay, do me a favor.
Yes, and we will do the same. We are going to remove our offer.
Right, immediately. and it's too bad because I really like Winter Doom. I really do. But
so I see our guest is in the green room. We only have a couple of minutes before we were originally going to bring him on. I think we should bring him on and then do a finish with what we have with Genesis, because
okay.
I don't want to keep Raj waiting any longer than we have to, and I want to give time to go over some of the things that Genesis is doing. So with that said,
there's the
hello, Raj. How you doing? Good to see you.
Greetings and salutations.
Where now?
I'm
so
doing
where
great.
are you now?
Wait a minute. Is it greetings and salutations? We're getting both. I mean,
I'm throwing both in there. And a Tic Tac.
Are you sure you don't want to announce any big news about what's going on with Pipe Drive and Tic Tac? You know, after our diatribe, you want to do that?
That clock is ticking. No pun intended.
He made a phone call while he was in the green room saying, "Cancel the offer."
Right. That's chump change. I think it's ironic though that they violated TikTok violated Google's tracking policy or privacy policy, right? It's a little bit of the fox in the hen house, right?
Yeah.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
So, Raj,
yeah,
you are the recently named CEO of Pipe Drive. Came from, well, first, before we get to it, why don't you tell people a little bit about your history? Because I have some very specific questions I want to ask you about that. And some of it goes to not just Pipe Drive, but to kind of you. And we'll get to it, though. You'll enjoy it. So fill people in a little bit about yourself, though.
Yeah, I think for this audience, certainly my last 10 and a half years are probably most relevant, which was spent at Zoho. And, it was just a great run, huge opportunity for me. And, I leave, as you know, a great company with great individuals that, it's an experience of a lifetime. I had the opportunity to work on both of their major divisions, their IT management division, and help grow that. And then on the Zoho side, the Zoho.com side, if you want to refer to it as that, with the business applications, really kind of saw that through its inception all the way to, the great work that they're doing now. So just like I said, it's just an incredible run. Enjoyed it immensely. A lot of respect for those guys.
When did you start actually at Pipe Drive?
I started at the beginning of June at Pipe Drive.
Brand new.
Yeah. So also the element of starting a new role, starting as the CEO of a company in the middle of a pandemic. So I don't know if you've had too many interviews with people in that type of situation, but that's been interesting. And Paul, I mentioned to you, one of the first things I did is I came over to Estonia, which is really the roots of Pipe Drive. And so, traveling, getting here during the pandemic was really interesting. But while I'm here, to make you all a little bit jealous, there's no COVID here, knock on wood. Wow. And so, I get off the plane and I see people, no masks, hugging, high fives, shaking hands, and I'm like freaked. I'm like, what is going on in this place? And come to find out, there's no COVID here. And wow. It's not by happenstance. I mean, they did the right things. This is a really a very advanced country. It's steeped in technology in terms how it pulled itself up after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and they gained their independence. They really leverage technology to grow their economy, put services in place that make it a really a first-class nation.
It is. I'll tell you honestly, my wife and I spent some time there, part of a cruise we were on a few years ago, and I'll tell you what, it was one of the highlights of the cruise. I mean, first of all, I've never seen one of the things I always recommend to anyone who hasn't been, is just coming, and I'm sure I don't know, presuming it's open, I'm sure you've seen it then, is to just go to the National Museum in Tallinn. It's just amazing, because this is a country that sings to fight. That's how they fight. They sing. And I'm not kidding when I say that. It's an astounding country of these remarkable people who are literally just brave. And at the same time, understand the value of culture at a level that I almost never see anywhere else. And it's just an amazing place to just hang in. It's a chill country too, which is the other thing that's astounding. We were sitting in this cafe, eating outdoors, and it's crowded and busy. And we're talking to a couple other people we ran into from the cruise. And coming, I'll still never forget this. Sitting next to me, was this, and Yvonne with this two guys, and they're both wearing like brown, I think it was brown Yankee hats. So they were both Danish, as it turned out. So I look at them and I go, "Oh, Yankees fans," and they go, "Who's that?" They had no idea. It was just a fashion statement. The fashion statement in Estonia and Denmark, right? So, right, but the people. It's a highlight country. It's a country that I absolutely think people should visit, and when the opportunity represents itself. All right, but that, kind of what you said kind of goes to my actual question too, which was, look, you had a very good position at Zoho, and Zoho, you'll be there as long as you want to be. Zoho, I remember Sridhar at I think you were probably there at the time. You were at the analyst summit, said he's fired 2 people in 25 years. Now, I don't know if that's strictly true, but that's an indicator of how the company thinks, right? And so you could have just stayed and been comfortable and done well and be happy there. But instead you go to a company that, A, as you said, is in Estonia and you have to get there. B, actually is in a very kind of oddly difficult position, because they're contender with a good product, but they're up against companies that not only are in the same realm, but have similar names like Pipeliner and Pipeline. I mean, who do approximately the same thing, right? Not exactly, because you have some distinct differences from them. But you're dealing with even awareness issues, and a company that has some serious ambition, but there's no guarantee you're going to. I mean, look, I think you'll succeed, but there's never a guarantee of those things. And so, in other words, you're going from a fairly low risk situation where you could produce well to a much higher risk situation where you could potentially produce well and probably will, but you don't know that, right? You already had 10 years to verify that you could at Zoho. So why?
Yeah, it really is all relative. I mean, as you were saying that, Paul, I think back to 10 and a half years ago when I joined Zoho, and, I joined, I was going to say I joined as president. I actually became president within the first year of joining. But, that was a little bit hollow at the time, right? And a little bit unknown, very unknown. Hey, we're going to build some cloud apps, and, we're going to build a CRM, and we're going to go against Salesforce. And, it was pretty questionable at the time as well. So I think it's a little bit relative. I would say, with the references to Pipeliner and things like that, the original pipeline view was developed by Pipedrive. And it's funny, I know there's many a company that are still copying that format, that UI, because it really reflects, it's reflective of the sales process. And so you're seeing that come in. So there's some real innovation there. And, I think you know this as well. It's been wildly accepted. I would say it's got over 90,000 customers. Some of the things that I looked at when I looked at Pipedrive was, not only the product and the market fit, but, an indicator you have to look at is its finances as well. How successful, how profitable, when could they be profitable, those sorts of things. And here you had a SaaS company that was profitable, we're a lot like Zoho in that we're private, so we don't disclose the exact details, but it's pretty significant revenue stream as well. I mean, these days we're all over the world, got 8 offices in North America as well as Europe, and expanding into other locations as well. It's all based on the success of the product and the acceptance from its customers. So that's all good. And what's interesting about Pipedrive is that it's also got a set of blue chip venture capitalists, which we would have just shunned at Zoho. But what's interesting here is we've raised over $90 million and haven't used a dime of the money. So, we've got a strong balance sheet, a lot more money coming in, month on month, year on year. So I think we're in a pretty healthy position. But fundamentally, what I would say the differentiator is here, Paul, is that, Pipedrive was one of those companies that really took a user perspective of the problem. The way I describe it is, we all know CRM is just a gigantic market, right? $40 billion plus. And these days, there's about 600 competitors.
At least.
And their motion was very similar. It was like, hey, here's this huge market. All we need to do is build what Salesforce built and charge less. That's been the strategy for 599 of them, right? Pipedrive took the decidedly different approach and said, we're not going to try to sell to the CEO or the, CRO or even the CMO. What we wanted to do is solve the problem for salespeople, make a usable product that helps them close business. And so it's been this viral grassroots kind of growth around Pipedrive. And the way that came about is that some of the original founders were in fact professional salespeople, to the extent that Timo Rain, who was the CEO prior to me coming on board, he's now the chairman of the board. He started out his career as a door-to-door salesman. So we're talking grassroots, right? And so, as they got into, call it more sophisticated selling, where they're doing, outbound, inbound selling, they had a mentality of the sales process, and they wanted to reflect that in a product. So, the kind of adage that they use is this idea that it's sales tools for salespeople built by salespeople, and it's really true.
So let me ask you that then, because really, as analysts, Brent and I hear that a lot. Right. Although I always find it sort of mixed to hear it, because there's nothing wrong with building sales tools also for sales managers, right? They're sales tools, for God's sake. Everyone has a job to do. You make everyone's job better one way or the other. I mean, I get it, because salespeople historically have paranoia about things, but the reality is, look, when I was examining SFA tools all the way back, and I'm talking 15, 20 years ago, the first time I actually saw something that would be valuable to a salesperson was actually Oracle put out a quoting system, right, for salespeople, right? Meaning the salespeople could actually build quotes easily with that system. And it was the first thing I ever saw. I remember writing about this in one of the editions of CRM Speed of Light, in fact. I want to say it was the second. But it was the first time I saw, okay, it's a genuine tool that a salesperson can use, and it's not something the sales manager is using to spy on their pipelines, right? So, but since that time, you know, I've heard to varying degrees, well, we're building it for salespeople. So what is it that you're doing that actually is for salespeople? Like, what are some of the actual things that you give to a salesperson that's designed specifically for them and not necessarily for their, you know, VP?
Yeah, it's a great question. So some of the things that we've implemented already and expanding upon are things like sales assistants that get into sales coaching. We kind of impart some of the philosophy that we have on going through a sales process, as an example. And, you know, it's ingrained into the product so that when we see things that salespeople are doing or not doing, we can point out, hey, this process was pretty good. You may want to apply it to this deal as well. Another thing that we're working on is something called deal health checks, right? Where you know, we can take a look at what's happening within a deal, kind of rate those deals in terms of a health check. Another area is goal management, right? So you have a quota. How am I going to get to that quota? So these are types of things that we both, you know, build into the product, but we also kind of impart some of the early philosophies of sales that we've picked up over the years that go back into the product. So that's what I mean. And then you know, the last thing I would say about that is, certainly we've got to bubble up this information for sales management and executives, but it really has been an approach where we start with the user and trying to enable more sales. How do we get sales done? How do we get it done faster? How do we get more of them?
That's fair.
Hey, I just wanted to kind of get a little in a different direction, but having spent so much time at Zoho, and they have such a unique culture over there, and I think I can speak for Paul. It's a culture that it was refreshing to see in a lot of ways. Do you see anything that you picked up and learned from the Zoho culture that you would like to integrate into what's going on at Pipedrive?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, through the process, and it was a long process in terms of talking with Pipedrive, something that took over 7 months, right, to kind of make sure that it was the right fit for both sides. And I think, you know, one of the things that was appealing to them is some of the things that we did at Zoho and how we went about it. Not necessarily about bringing certainly IP or you know, how to build product per se, but how we went about it, right? Pipedrive, I would say, has very similar parallels already, where it's a very humble company, to the point where I think, you know, Paul, in your first introduction with them, you kind of remarked, man, these guys are a little bit arrogant, right? They're standoffish. And the whole thing is that, you know, they're not a kind of company and organization that's going to beat their chest. You know, they let their product do the talking. And in some sense, like we were in the early years at Zoho, where we just felt like we weren't that good at sales and marketing. And so we were just going to build product. And, you know, naively said they will come. Fortunately, they did at Zoho, but it's a similar approach at Pipedrive, where there's a lot of humility. I think that's been ingrained in their culture over the years as Estonians. You probably, know through history they've been taken over by countries, been had independence and then taken over again and again. And so, they're a very reserved, cautious culture. And I think, the kind of things that we did at Zoho and the way we did it, and I'd say personally, my style as well fit well with Pipedrive. But yes, beyond that, I think there's a lot that I've learned over the years, Brent, that I hope to, use at least as inspiration for some things that we'll do at Pipedrive as well.
So, got two final questions for you. All right. Question one is
BYOB.
That's question two. You're ahead of me.
I was taking copious notes.
Yeah, you're a little ahead of me. Look, you've got the singing revolution on your side there, right? So,
yeah.
But question one is, all right. So, as you said, let's call it a quiet, reserved people, and a company that's been modestly quiet and reserved also over the years. And meaning, again, goes to my original point about there's been some market confusion at times with other companies with the word pipe in the front name and front name, regardless of distinction. I mean, you obviously have a very, you're actually a very mature company. And but at the same time now, it's time, and one of the reasons you're there, I'm presuming, is to kind of bring it out there, right? So to the extent you can talk about it, what's the plan to get it out there?
Yeah, so this is steeped in my roots as well. I think this all starts with product, right? You've got to have great product. I think we've got what I would say at Pipedrive is a great platform to build upon, and we've got a great customer base that we can go market to. And now we need to just go solve more problems for customers, right? We want them to stay in Pipedrive longer. We want to look at the jobs that they have to accomplish and see how we can help solve that. Over the years, we've actually built a lot of functionality that may surprise you into the base CRM, things like creation of documents, management of documents, creating contracts, quotes, adding signatures, all within Pipedrive. Huh. And so, I think that's giving us a great baseline to have a platform that is really all-inclusive, keeps people in the application. The challenge here, I would say, and you kind of alluded to it, right? There's, like you said, there's 600 some odd CRM vendors. How do you kind of get above the fray, get above the chatter, and get that message out there, right? I think you were probably even surprised when I mentioned some of the functionality that Pipedrive has natively. There's a lot packed in there, and it is a difficult task to differentiate yourself in this very, very loud market. So that's a challenge for us.
All right. So there's one way you can do that.
Yeah.
You got a band?
We got a band.
You guys want to do it?
We do want to do it. We do want to do it. I'm signing people up already. And I'll tell you, when you make your next road trip to Estonia, you can come out to the Pipedrive facility, and you'll come into our building, and every floor in the current 9-floor building has a unique theme. And we do have a band floor where we got musical instrument themed rooms. We've got drums, guitars everywhere, and every evening there's a group of people that are jamming.
Wow.
And that's about as cool as I am, is to say jamming.
Listen, I'm right there with you. I'm 70. You have no.
So I took some notes here on BYOD, or BYOB, but we definitely want in.
All right. So what I'm going to do is, okay, everyone listening in, you heard that. I just want you to know. So Pipedrive's going up on the official list on LinkedIn. I'm going to be sending you the registration form and the rules of engagement. I'll pop them I guess send them to Mari to give to you. Okay.
Perfect.
And they'll come right after the show. So Raj, thank you. Thank you very much for everything. So
thanks, Brent. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for being
yeah, absolutely.
Show, and welcome to Pipedrive.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye, Raj.
I was just looking at I spoke to Timo. Hard to believe, man. That's 4.5 years ago.
Yeah. No, they do. They have a actual good product. I remember it. I remember them. I can distinguish between them. You can distinguish between them. But, I think Raj is a kind guy, and he's a smart guy. And, I think they'll get their name out. He was on the show. That's a start, right? But, I think this is, it's Pipedrive's kind of at that, this is the time for them. And if they've got all that capability already. They've got, as he said, 90 million sitting in the bank that they haven't even used, which is amazing. I wanted to borrow a couple of million from him, but I didn't have time to ask.
Just go ahead and buy TikTok, man.
No, he withdrew the offer thanks to what we would do.
I know. Hey, we have only a few minutes and I wanted to make sure that we touched on our visit with John Hernandez from Genesis. And so we had a really good conversation. We definitely can't play all of it or comment on all of it, but I want to play two things from that conversation. The first thing is kind of you ask him a question and we'll let that response play. But I think your question gives a lot of insight into not just Genesis, but what it takes to be a contact center in the age of digital transformation. And it goes way beyond a contact center. So I'm going to cue you up. This is interesting. So you're going to have to sit back and watch yourself. And
I do that every day.
And then we'll come back on the other side.
Sort of like, Paul, what's wrong with yourself?
Here.
Honestly. So if I go back in your history and I look at, the original history of Genesis, it basically was hardcore kind of company. You associated Genesis with effectively the telecommunications industry, even if it wasn't in it. It didn't even matter. It's how you thought of the company, right? Now you've, let's say, gone from something that was effectively left-brained, meaning mechanical and wired, and to something incredibly right-brained, which is engagement and behavior and experience. And you actually built something, a technology that can support and enhance and sustain and enable that engagement and experience, which, from my perspective, both as an analyst watching the market, and as a person, engaging all the time, is totally aligned with what the market actually needs at the moment. So my question is, can you tell us about both the technology, but also the thinking that went into looking at, Genesis, Engage, and the broader side of it to begin with? Why you even decided, okay.
You're still talking.
I never stop.
I thought that was a really interesting way to set up him by kind of giving, you were thinking of Genesis the way you remember them. And I think the way a lot of people remember them as, call center, contact center, very traditional in that area, and very good at what they did in that area. But in the modern era, that has you need to do more, and you need to do it in a different way. Is that kind of what you were leading to?
That's exactly what I was leading to.
All right, so that's good. Perfect. Now I'm going to bring back John and let you hear how he responded to that, because once again, I don't think he would have responded this way 5 years ago.
No.
So here it is. If I can only get this thing to work. There it is.
The thing that we are launching this week, and what we feel is very unique in the industry, is making sure that this is a multi-cloud, multi-vendor type model, meaning all companies want choice and flexibility of how they're going to consume the technologies. And so making sure that we have the relationships with, the best cloud infrastructure companies out there, Amazon, Google, Microsoft with Azure, Oracle, IBM, right? And through public and private edition type models, those capabilities available to those organizations depending on how they want to consume it. But it doesn't just end there. It really is an industry-wide initiative of making sure that we're taking all the application uses that we have in there. Workforce management, the capabilities around AI and bots and predictive engagement and journey orchestration and all that key rich digital content merged in with the contact center, but then also broadening it across two other big ecosystem areas where we see this industry initiative taking off. The first one is around technology providers, that do AI and bots and machine learning, like the Googles and the Nuances and Microsoft and Amazons of the world. And then workforce management type capabilities for customers that have that preference for another vendor like a Calabrio in that area. So making sure that there's choice among technology vendors as well. And then the real big one is around go-to-market and how we enable our system integrator partners like BT and OBS and NTT and Accenture and Aria and Avtex and Converge One and on and on and on. There's just this big rallying cry in the marketplace that's hungry for the technology that we develop and bring to market every single day, including the consumption models to bring that in to drive that predictive personalized engagement and hone in on the North Star, which again is what we call experience as a service, and helping companies achieve the momentum to get there. And so by bringing all these folks together in an environment where we drive this ecosystem initiative collectively is looking to be a really big winning recipe that customers are really rallying behind.
All right, let me bring you back in. That was, to me, that was really interesting because that didn't sound like anything like what you would have heard a conversation with the call center 5, 6, 7 years ago.
No, and you remember how that's kind of the evolution kind of began of those things. At first you had the call center, and then because other media or other channels began getting involved with customer service, like Twitter and social media on the one hand, or let's multiple channels. It went from call center to become contact center. You remember that? And
yep.
At that point, contact center was really just a name that they gave it because it was no longer just calls, right? But then the KPIs began changing, and I still remember that when all of a sudden, because one of the original KPIs was basically how fast you could get rid of the queue, right? So,
right.
Which
had nothing to do with the experience at all.
Nothing.
Just time.
Just hang up on customers a lot, and you do really well, right?
You'll get a raise because your time handles are great.
You cleared your queue in 3 minutes, and you had 400 customers. So click, 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 click.
Now we only have 200 customers, but you got rid of it quick.
Permanently 200. So, and so all the KPIs began changing, and then the performance metrics, thus the compensations began to change. The nature of what a customer service rep began to change. And all in all, everything changed in terms of what the customers expected and demanded. And then it became even more interesting because I still remember the one thing a customer that kind of didn't change was that no matter how many channels you were engaged with the customer on, the customer expected a performance level of the best channel, whatever it was. Like, so for example, if you were on Twitter and you got it, and Twitter guaranteed an answer within an hour, and you got the answer within an hour, then all the other channels, the expectation was you would get an answer no more than an hour, right? Because you could get that on Twitter, right? So that would be phone, that would be email, that wouldn't matter, right? So it was always the expectation of the best possible outcome became what customers wanted, which of course put the pressure on even more. So that it became a point where you had to have these kind of integrated, platform. You had to have these platforms and ecosystems that, and then these like meta systems, which is kind of what Genesis Engage seems to be, that could handle that, so that in effect there was some optimal uniformity, and I don't mean real uniformity exactly, but I'm just calling it that for the sake of this, but optimal uniformity in the ability to respond to a customer, which of course then meant that, the customer remained at his or her happiest because you did respond in a timely way according to their demands and requirements, which is really fascinating to me. And I will say, I mean, we've seen like Oracle, CX Unity and other, or Pega Infinity and some of these other engagement focused platforms, some real progress in, actual enablement of true engagement versus just a rejiggered CRM platform. But this is a different approach coming from, ironically, the call center world originally, right? It sort of stems from that history, but this is from the service side, so to speak. And it's a very different approach, but at the same time, ultimately satisfies the same level of, happy engagement and thus overarchingly good customer experience. So I like what they're doing, and I honestly, that's, over the years, I didn't have much contact with Genesis because they just really didn't seem like they were going to be in my wheelhouse that much, other than the pure, contact center side. But here they are, right in the heart of everything, and doing a really, really interesting job at it too. I don't want to call it great yet because I haven't seen the product in action, and that would be unfair. But at the same time, I am beyond intrigued. And plus, you got a guy like John there. You and I know him a long time, and he's just a star. So there's so much on the right track here.
Yep. I'll say is digital transformation was already heading in integrating call center, contact center into a customer engagement platform. COVID-19 has accelerated that, and what I think Genesis is looking to put out with that with their announcement around this, the multi-cloud, is that you got to figure it out as a company. You got to figure it out, and companies like Genesis are providing different ways to do it, to ease the ability to do it. And so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how this progresses and see how things play out. But
yeah, I'm with you. To me, it's like one of the first actual, as I said, like meta systems, which is really fascinating to even see one. So I'm going to be very curious as to see how this plays out, and very intrigued. And I think honestly, given what John described, at least they're probably going to be pretty successful at it.
All right, we got to go, but we have also posted the full conversation with John Hernandez. We'll post a link to that. We'll actually put the embedded into the CRM Playaz group on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure you get a link to it. So we want you to check it out because we only touched on it, and there was a lot to that conversation, including a term that you said that they were the IaaS for IaaS. I'm not going to let you explain it right now because you explain it on the video, but check it out when you get a chance. And on that note, we'll be back tomorrow for Excuse the Intrusion, sports. We just like talking about sports. I don't know if we know what we're going to talk about, but we'll be talking about sports.
We'll worry about tomorrow. A week from tomorrow, though, we have, looks like, Steve Reese, CIO of the Phoenix Suns. So that will be a show and a half. That guy is amazing.
Yeah, better get your sleep before Steve comes on.
That's
Anyway, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Au revoir.